Hello, everybody, and welcome to the, second edition of the Prep Football Season podcast. I'm Aaron Ferguson. This is Stan Morris, and we're starting this podcast off with a 15-yard penalty on Stan because we're both wearing button-down shirts. Or at least
90-degree heat.
Or at least that's what happened to Normal Community on Friday night before the season kicked off. They wore... supposedly their new jerseys is what I was told. I don't know if that's true, but supposedly wearing new road white jerseys with essentially white numbers just because there's an orange outline. And the official went out of his way to come over to me and say, by the way, we're starting the game off with a 15-yard penalty, and here's why. So have you ever seen a team penalized before the season starts?
No, I haven't seen one penalized before. No. Not at all. I mean, I think Dunlap could have, but when they had theirs white on gold, the gold stripe around theirs, that was really tough to read too.
But it wasn't a rule then, so it's recent, but I think it's been in place for maybe 2 years.
Yeah, I don't know, but I hadn't heard of that. Starting the game off,
starting the season off before the kickoff with the penalty. Right. So, but Normal Community won the game 43-7. Richwoods did compete. They competed for the first half. They were down 21-7. They're at the 10-yard line going in, under a minute left in the first half, and just couldn't get a fade pass, and then Community speed on the little swing pass on fourth down, which just hit them for a 1-yard loss. And if you go into the half down one possession, 21-14, or maybe you're down 21-10 if you decide to kick it, and then you're getting the ball back, you're giving your team a shot. But not getting in there was huge, and then Ironman put the clamps down in the second half.
Yeah.
But you got a brand spanking new field, huh?
Oh, man. Yeah, I went to DMAC for DMAC Tremont, Route 9. How do you say that? Route 9 rivalry. Yeah,
or Route, if you're from some parts of the state.
Yeah, for Jim McDonald Field, man. Talk about beautiful. Yeah, about $6 million they spent on that, but it's absolutely gorgeous. It rivals pretty much about any facility around here now. I mean, DMAC went from probably the worst facilities in the area to possibly the best facilities in the area. Really, really beautiful. They dedicated it to Jim McDonald. Coach, I'm kind of showing my age because I covered DMAC back in the 80s when he went to when he took them to a state title game in 1987. I was there for that. I think it was at ISU then. But you're talking about turf field then. That was like paper thin turf field back in that day. But now this one's just, gorgeous and really cushiony soft. They're making them really nice now as far as good for playing conditions on there. And saw good. One of those first games where you have typical first game where you got turnovers, you got penalties, and things that both teams need to work out. But a game that went right down to the wire, 14-13. DMAC pulls it out. Levi Sherman, who was the quarterback last year, all-conference quarterback, he was your player of the year, small school basketball. He moves from quarterback to wide receiver, makes a great diving catch to score DMAC's first touchdown, and then he scores, makes a leaping catch for a 2-point conversion to give them the 14-13 lead there in the fourth quarter, and it came down to a field goal. Tremont, about a 34-yard field goal attempt for Tremont. They were on 4th and 15 at the time, down at the 17-yard line there. So they had an opportunity. Some Tremont people think that maybe there could have been a roughing the kicker on that kick. But the Tremont coach, Zach Zaire, thought maybe DMAC, one of the guys, kind of touched it a little bit, so it fell a little bit short. But Zach Zaire was like, it really doesn't matter because it came down. A game isn't decided by just one play, and that they had a lot of opportunities to win that game, and they just didn't. DMAC capitalized on the turnovers that Tremont had, and one of those was at the 1-yard line going in right before halftime, which was huge, 6-6 game. Tremont could have, taken that momentum in, but the DMAC was able to get a fumble recovery there right at the 1. Tremont did take the lead in the third quarter, but An interception in the fourth quarter led to D-Mac's go-ahead touchdown. It's fun to see a game go right down to the wire. I mean, I've had a lot of openers that have been blowouts, that have been you're running clocks, and so it's nice to see something come down right to it. Yeah.
Let's stick with the small schools. I know when our previews came out, athletes take to Twitter, as they rightfully should, to express their pleasure or displeasure with stuff that Joe Blows like us write about their teams. And there were some unhappy gray ghosts with you from what I saw, but they proved it. And I always say, like, go out and prove me wrong, and I'll be happy to admit that.
Oh, absolutely.
You're better, and they pulled off a big one.
Be some motivation. They played a lot of young kids last year, a lot of sophomores last year, and showed that, it's a group that was unbeaten as freshmen. Talented group, but when you're up against a team like Tolono Unities and the Monticellos and Illini Prairie Conference, that's a tough conference to go through. But man, they really showed what they can do on Friday. I remember they were up 28-0. And this is a Tolono Unity team that's used to winning. 24 consecutive years they've been in the playoffs. They've had 5 runner-up finishes in the state. Really. Traditional program, but IVC, Alex Merlot, their junior quarterback, threw for 230 yards, ran for another 60, threw 2 touchdown passes. They looked good. They looked really good. Camden Wallard caught 2 of those touchdowns. He's a sophomore receiver who was started on the varsity basketball team as a freshman, so he's used to kind of that varsity big game kind of experience. And so, 371 yards in total offense. I mean, they look good. They look really good. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. We did kind of say that they could be one of those sleeper teams, and we talked about it. And Tremont, another one. I mean, they showed how improved they are over last year too. I mean, IBC has a tough one this weekend. They go up to Monticello, which is, again, another powerhouse. And I'm kind of curious to see what they do against that program, too. So, good showing for the Ghosts. Good job, Ghosts.
I don't know. On the large school side, I think – I don't know what was most impressive. I think actually – maybe teams that we haven't talked a lot about because of a lack of success lately. Limestone and East Peoria were impressive both in losing efforts, but to have Limestone go down to Mount Zion and really have a chance to win that game, falling short 12-6, and then Lauren Peacock as offensive coordinator, they said they're going to throw the ball a little bit more, and Blake Fengel threw for 170 yards. 16 of 30, so he had a pretty good game throwing the football, and I think they need to open up the rushing attack a little bit more because they only had 45-ish yards. So maybe a little bit more balance, or maybe get a little bit more push up front from the line. But who knows? Maybe something's going on there, and they can come back home and see what they can do against LaSalle Peru this weekend, who really battled Morton pretty strong over at Carper Field. Morton ended up pulling out with a 23-0 victory, but that game was close. It was 3-0 at halftime, and they scored 13 points in the fourth quarter, so eventually wore them down. What really interested me about the Morton game was Jarrett Kreider had, 3 carries for 96 yards, I think. Let me double check that. 3 carries for 96 yards. Meanwhile, his quote-unquote quarterback, which is it's just another running back, and Nolan Donald ran for 113 yards. But I think Kreider showcased that speed, a little different element. Maybe surprised LaSalle Peru a little bit on the timing of when they did it. But a good win for the Potters. And East Peoria, before I forget that I even mentioned them, 14-7 overtime loss at home to Streeter, which was really a surprise to me because I thought even though Streeter made the playoffs, they kind of got dismantled by Dunlap in the first round, which the Dunlap team was awfully good, as they showed. I knew they were losing quite a bit, but I thought they were bringing enough back where, maybe it'd be a little more sizable of a win for them. But I think that says a lot about East Peoria's defense to be able to put the clamps down and force a couple of turnovers and really hang tight for 4+ quarters, just barely losing that one in overtime.
Mhm. Yeah, as far as surprises go, maybe a lot of people on the small school side would be surprised about Princeville and a Lewistown game going into overtime. I mean, here's a Princeville team that made the quarters last year, bringing back a lot of talent this year, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And to see that game go 7-7 in regulation and go into overtime may have surprised a lot of people. But John Carruthers, coach for Princeville, was like, this is going to be he was telling me, this is going to be a tough game. It's going to be a tough game because when they were sophomores, Princeville was 8-1, and their only loss was to Lewistown. And so he figured it'd be a battle, and Lewistown really gave Princeville everything they could handle going in. And Darren Winkler, who's Lewistown coach, they've kind of struggled the last few years, gone 4-5 and 3-6 and those kind of things. And the program has been a playoff kind of a program in the past, but they had a great summer and they were expecting to be much more improved, and they certainly showed that. I mean, they kept it was 49-9 last year. Yeah. These two teams played.
Big turnaround.
And so Lewistown, he said that's the first time he's seen a Lewistown team fly around since they were in 2010. In 2010, they made I think a semifinal run or a really good run into the playoffs, and so. But Princeville had a chance maybe to do something at the very end of regulation, but they decided just to take a knee. And the senior guys were like, hey, let's just get it into overtime and we'll take care from there. They won a couple overtime games in the playoffs last year. They were used to that. And so they got very first play of the game. Sneddon goes for a 10-yard touchdown. Adam Sneddon, he carried the ball 116 yards, got 116 yards. And he had a little shoulder issue, but didn't look too bad in the first game, and so he scored on the very first play, and then Lewistown fumbled their first play when they got the ball on their chance, and so they were kind of behind the 8-ball and couldn't get it done. But good showing from Lewistown, and Princeville were in the ranked 7th, I think, preseason, and so I think they're a good enough team that they should still be ranked in there, But yeah, good game. Good game there, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Pekin kind of had a long way to go to Oak Forest, the Chicago suburbs, but came away with a win. And kind of interesting, Nathan Riggy stepping into the quarterback role, replacing Quinn Theleritis from last year. And Sebastian Hill, who as you'll hear later on the podcast, is the younger brother of Julian Hill and Christian Hill from Pekin, and I mistakenly called him Julian at one point, and he just kind of quietly corrected me. They look so much alike, and the funny thing was I was driving over to Pekin to talk with them yesterday, and I was like, now remember, it's Sebastian. And I still, had it slip, but those two combined for 4 touchdowns through the air. And so I got to catch up with them a little bit. You can check that out later on pjstar.com /podcasts or pjstar.com /preps. As we hear from those two, as I caught up with them last night after practice. Elsewhere around the area, Washington got a big lift from Sam Walter, who touched the ball 6 times for 154 yards on the ground. Washington has never lost an opener period under Darryl Crouch, but they've got a tough one against Morris this weekend, and having to go to Morris. So we'll see what happens up there. Peoria High was up 30-0 after one quarter on Champaign Centennial. I think Coach Thornton thinks they probably have a few things to clean up, but then they've got a big game this week against Notre Dame. Those city games are always fun. Last year was 82-80. I remember our Chiefs and Rivermen beat reporter David Minion covered that game for us, and he texted me after the game and after deadline and everything. He's like, never send me to a high school football game again. 82-80. That was nuts.
Want to go to the small school area and a couple other games?
Yeah, sure. Sure.
Yeah, okay. A couple other games. Small school side from Friday night. Farmington was ranked 3rd on 3A going in. They extended their their streak to 19 regular season games. They've won in a row. Kind of had a slow start. They were only up 12-8 at halftime against Stark County, but ended up winning that one 32-14. And talk about numbers. They put the numbers up there as they usually do, as they have been the last few years. They had 630 yards on total offense. They got it going after a while. They had some missed assignments and those kind of things. It was kind of a slow start, first game kind of thing in the first half, but they got it going. Hayden Brott was, again, 210 yards passing, a couple touchdown passes. He ran the ball for 189 yards and scored a couple of 60-yard touchdown runs, so he had 399 yards himself in total offense. So a good night for him. Dash Anderson was 224 yards rushing, got a rushing touchdown. So, yeah, they put some numbers up and showed that they're pretty good again this year. Elmwood Brimfield, another one's kind of a slow start. They were only up 12-6 at halftime against Mid-County, ended up winning at 40 to 6, I believe that was. But, yeah, they just they have a rotating backs. I mean, they can just keep rotating some backs in there, and they got almost 300 yards rushing again, kind of wore Mid-County down. Eureka was one that had kind of a great finish. I mean, it was Coach Bachman was telling me that, it's great for the fans, but it was a little stressful for the coach because it came down right to the very last second. I mean, Alex Britton scored a touchdown, a 1-yard touchdown with 6 seconds left to go in the game to give them the win. They 19-14. They beat Leroy. Leroy had scored a touchdown with like 1:46 left. Eureka came down, ran right down, and got the winning touchdown. So a big win for them. They got a sophomore quarterback, Matt Martin, who made a big run to get down to the one there in the last few seconds, and he had 120 yards passing, another 60 rushing. Eureka doesn't pass the ball very much, so 120 yards passing is good for them, especially for a sophomore, and he showed some good things there. So there's a few on the small school side that were kind of fun to see.
Yeah, I'd say one thing that surprised me was how much Metamora ran the football this week. They're on the road at Champaign Central, not Centennial, and they may have worn the new turf out with how much they ran the football. I don't have full stats.
Used to do, right?
Yeah, yeah, a little bit. I don't have full stats in front of me, but Thomas Hall ran the ball he scored the first 3 touchdowns on the ground. 6'7" coming down at you, running downhill. Yeah. I mean, why not? Think it back to the feature when I talked with his quarterbacks coach, Caleb Turbush, obviously former Metamora great himself. He said that, Tommy was very similar in the sense that he plays a lot of basketball and does all these other activities to kind of become quicker and be better on his feet. So he, kind of negates the negative perception that tall quarterbacks have that they can't move. So he obviously showcased that a little bit. I was surprised with Notre Dame. They went to Normal West, who was ranked 6th or 8th or something. They were ranked in 6A, which says a lot about a team that they returned a lot. They returned one of their kind of 2 quarterbacks. They went with a tandem quarterback system last year. So they returned their pocket passer and an electric playmaker in Armani Forrest. But Notre Dame really, I think, feels like they've got a playoff caliber team again, and I think they could still get there. But the past 3 years, they played Normal West to a 1-possession game, and they struggled to get out of the gates a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond this week to Peoria High with a clash of the fast-paced versus wing T. We want to slow you down, take 5-minute possession. So that'll be interesting. And then Canton going to Charleston, they got off to a slow start. I mean, that game was scoreless at halftime. And then Jake Smith kind of took the game over a little bit, started with the touchdown run, and then had a nice touchdown pass. Something that we may see more from Canton this year is air it out a little bit more. They think they've got some athletes that they can put on the perimeter and get the ball to. So, yeah. You have anything else on the small school side?
Not from last week, yeah.
What about this week?
This week?
You excited for week 2?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got some big games coming up.
Yeah.
Good, some Prairie Land, Lincoln Trail crossovers again. This first week, I think Prairie Land won 5 of the 8, and so we'll see what happens in week 2 with that. We got Mercer County at Elmwood Brimfield. That should be pretty good. Mercer County beat a really good Knoxville team 32-30. They've got a junior quarterback, Rashawn King, who I think threw for 3 touchdowns. Had an interception in the end zone to kind of seal the win there for Mercer County. So that's a good test again for Elmwood Brimfield. And then Anawan Wethersfield goes to Farmington, and we'll see what happens there. Anawan Wethersfield got beat by an Illini West team that really looked real good. I mean, that's a traditional program, powerhouse program, and they've kind of been 6-4 and that 5-5 kind of thing in the last few years. But they really feel like they've got a team that can get back to that kind of tradition this year, and they can challenge for that Prairieland Black title. So, so that's more on how good Illini West was and how anything on Anawan Wethersfield, which won the Lincoln Trail last year, and they've got a lot of skill guys coming back this year. So that'll be fun to see them against Farmington and see what goes on there. So those are 2 games. Eureka has a big test when they host GCMS, who is defending 2A state champs. They're actually in 1A right now, which is pretty amazing. But and they've got a lot back. So Coach Bachman was like, you got to play a perfect game just to be in there with those guys. And so that's coming up this weekend. So that's just a few.
Where are you going to be?
I think I'm going to Farmington.
Farmington? Should be a good one.
Yeah. Should be.
I'll be at your alma mater, Indris Field, at Richwoods to see Peoria High and Notre Dame. Richwoods will be at the stadium against Manual. But that's where I'll be. I don't know if it's going to be 82-80 again. I don't know what.
Yeah.
At this point, I have no expectations for any Peoria High game I cover, because it seems like every time I say, well, they haven't, I've seen it all. Well, they haven't scored 100 yet. Hopefully that's not the case, but who knows? It should be a good game. I hope it's a good game. Kind of a first look at what, if any, changes Pat Armstrong's made to the wing tee or defensively what they've done. I know they really like Logan Cover. He ran for 1,000 yards last year, so there's plenty of reason to like him. It'll be interesting to see what they can do against a Peoria High defense that I'm really excited to see, because I heard they've changed up their, scheme to, I don't know what it is yet. I haven't seen it. I haven't hopped on to see if there's any film out there that I can look at, but supposedly it's going to look a little similar to what Phillips did, as we talked about on the podcast last week, where they just stack dudes up at the line in one straight line and try to shoot the gaps the way Phillips did against Dunlap. So we'll see what happens there. I mentioned Richwood's Manuals going on at the stadium. Rock Island comes to Metamora, which I think could be a really interesting game, because as I said, Metamora ran the ball a lot last week, so you have to think they're going to have to be a little bit more balanced against the Rock Island team that's supposed to be pretty good. They've returned, I think, 4 or 5 linemen and a key running back. So there's plenty of good games on the large school side. The one that I would love to go to, but maybe logic doesn't say we should go to keep our staff closer to home, but Washington at Morris. For one, I heard that the Morris atmosphere at night is just unbelievable, with fog that just comes in and covers the field and whatnot, and is truly a home field advantage, but also because you've got Washington, who the polls just came out, it's ranked number 1 in 5A again, against the Morris team that's 3rd in 4A, was runner-up to Rochester, and really gave Rochester a game in that 4A title game. I drove up early just to go watch that last year. So that should be a real good barometer and measuring stick for both teams in that one.
Yeah.
What else you got on your side?
Well, a couple more maybe to look at. DMAC goes to El Paso Gridley. I mean, DMAC has some things to work on from game 1. They struggled running the ball. They've got a kind of a young, inexperienced line, so they've got to learn. Got some things on the running game that they hope to kind of shore up. And El Paso Gridley is a team that's a playoff team from last year. They made a quarterfinal run last year, and they have Ryan Falk back as a all-area running back, and they beat Hayworth pretty easily, 28-0 last week, and so that's at El Paso Gridley, another turf field. So 2 turf fields in a row for DMAC, but. it'll be interesting to see the improvements that DMAC makes, and I'm sure that they will. Joe does a great job with them, and so I'm sure they'll make some adjustments from the first week. And like I said, IVC goes to Monticello. What else we have? We got Tremont going to Fisher, which is a playoff team. Fisher handled hoops in the area pretty well last week too. Princeville has A-Town having an Avon. They got a road trip to go to A-Town. Then A-Town lost their first game to Bushnell Prairie, West Prairie. Bushnell Prairie City, West Prairie. Yeah. BPW, you want to say that? Yeah, 22-14. So we'll see, again, improvements that each team makes. That's the kind of thing about first, again, week one is like, okay, this is what we saw. What do we need to work on? What do we need to improve on in week two? And kind of make those steps to be the kind of team that we really think that we are. And so you never really exactly know, where teams are after week one. Kind of week two, week three, you start to see as they make adjustments to and improve on. So we'll see what happens in week two.
I think the only large school team that I haven't mentioned is Dunlap. Have I brought them up at all?
Now, we mentioned uniforms. We did do that.
Yeah, we did mention them there, but for some reason it just popped into my mind that I hadn't said something about them, even to mention their name. But they were 21-7 winners over Galesburg this week. And the weird thing was everyone kind of knows the offensive firepower they have coming back with quarterback Miles Burke and Josiah Miaman, who's just a flat-out athlete, and really some wide receiver depth there. But it was their defense that carried them against Galesburg, as their offense kind of struggled a little bit. I think, week one, maybe some jitters, maybe just trying to build a rapport with some running backs and a new line. But I think they have a 3.5-hour trip to Mount Vernon Friday. And so I think that's another team that they've beat. I know they beat them last year. Might have beaten them the year before. I can't remember. That was actually before I even started here, because I came in week 3 of the 2016 season.
Right.
So forgive me for my hazy memory on that, since I wasn't actually here. But, it's going to be a good challenge for them, I think, because they do have such a long trip down there, to see how they respond and how the offense shakes out, and see if they can continue that defensive just juggernaut that they've been over the past 20 games or so. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
What else you got? You want to pick some games or no?
Sure.
Save it for the chart?
Whatever you want to do, man.
Let's do it here.
Pick some games.
Not
a couple.
Go ahead.
Want to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see. Mercer County at Elmwood. I'm going to go with a home team there by maybe a touchdown, because it's going to be a tough game, because Mercer County looked pretty good. I mean, they got up to an 18-0 lead early against Knoxville, and Knoxville was a team that a lot of people were really high on, and Mercer County got things going there. So that's but I'm going to go with the home team there and say by a touchdown that Elmwood gets that one.
Yeah, I don't know. Mercer County's just they've kind of been one of those football powers in the area, but that one against Knoxville is pretty impressive, because I know you and our buddy Jackson White with West Central Illinois Sports both like that Knoxville team a lot. So I think I'll go with Mercer County, but I think it's going to be a really close physical game.
Right, that it will be. Yeah. Large school?
Peoria High, Notre Dame. I don't think it's going to be as high scoring as the 82-80 state record affair last year, but I do think Peoria High's pace is going to eventually win out. But I will say they did look young, pretty young at times. Last week, once they got the 30-0 lead, maybe got a little too comfortable and got a little sloppy. So they're going to have to clean some things up and really put together a complete game, because I think Notre Dame's going to come back and really going to want to avenge that loss that they felt pretty bitter about last year.
So you're going Notre Dame?
No, I'm going Peoria High.
You're going Peoria High. I'm Peoria High. Yeah. All right. I'll go Peoria High too. but it's going to be awful close. Think?
You think so?
I don't know.
It could be. I don't know. The pace thing is always so interesting to me, just because you've got the tempo, and granted, Gabe Hernandez is not your typical first-year starter. He had to start last year when Karan Taylor was nursing an injury, in really a game that the staff felt like they should have won on the road. But he's just such a mental player, in a sense that his football IQ is what everyone on the coaching staff raves about. So it's not really that much of an adjustment, as opposed to building a rapport with the receivers and establishing that tempo, and coming out with a 30-0 lead after one quarter in week one had to be a pretty good showing. But I think for them, it's just going to be cleaning up. And if they can do that and execute their tempo, but if Notre Dame puts together 5 or 6 minute scoring drives, they've got a shot. But the key is going to be they're going to have to score on those drives, because Peoria High is going to get the ball and try to go.
Mm-hmm.
You got another game over there? Farmington, maybe?
AW in Farmington? Yeah. Yeah, well, let's see.
Putting a 19-game regular season streak?
19-game regular season winning streak on the line, yeah. I'm gonna go with the Farmers. I'm gonna go with they just have, again, I mean, they 600 and some yards last year. They can do it on the ground, and they can do it through the air. AW has some really good skill guys, but again, they're dealing with a little bit of an inexperience on the line, both sides of the line. They've got a sophomore quarterback he's really good. I mean, he's started some last year as their quarterback got hurt, and so he was their starter at the end of the year, and when they went into the playoffs. So they certainly got some skill guys that can make some things happen there. But I think Farmington has the edge there, and maybe 10 points. We'll go 10 points, something around there.
I'll give the Farmers 2 touchdowns. I think line plays so big in high school football. Yeah. Really, every level of football, it's huge, and having some experience and a leader like Jared DePriest is big, going both ways. I don't know. The Farmers they've got something going over there, and I don't know what. Toby Vallis has created a great culture, and
they've got speed. They've got the line play that you need, and a quarterback that can burn you through the air or on the ground. So, yeah.
There's something to be said for them being ranked 3rd in 3A as well, which the polls just came out again. Let's do Washington at Morris, the number 1 team in 5A. Washington coming off a 52-7 win against the Muhammad Seymour team that Coach Daryl Crouch thought was going to be very improved. They had some guys coming back, so that's a pretty impressive win. They were able to rest some guys, their starters, and get some other guys some experience against the Morris team, or coming up against a Morris team that it's not an easy place to play, from what I've been told. The Peoria High coaches talked about that when they went there for the semifinals. They were not necessarily concerned, but just almost in awe of the atmosphere that they had seen and heard about. Other people have mentioned it to me over the past few weeks. And that Morris team, again, runners up to Rochester last year. It's going to be a tough game. I think I actually had Morris winning this game when I did my preseason predictions, but they lost quite a bit. They lost quite a bit at receiver. But it seems like they always seem to replenish. I think it's going to be a tough physical game. I think I'll go with Washington just because of how strong they looked against Muhammad Seymour. And they have so much experience coming back. Even though I picked Morris to win when I did my predictions, not that anyone saw those predictions. They just saw 8-1 and 7-0 in the conference. Right. But there you go. There's a little insight.
Right. Well, Morris has beaten Washington. And
last year.
Yeah. And obviously, what a program that they've had over the years. But like you said, I mean, I just see the experience that 3-year starters and those kind of things that the Washington can put on you. I mean, it's tough to go on a road to a place like that. But if you're going to go on the road to a place like that, it's good to have that kind of experience. And to be there for you. So I say Washington pulls it out. It may be,
a touchdown or a field goal, yeah.
Less than a touchdown, but I say they get a win there.
Well, and the thing is, you've got a 3-year starter at quarterback who also plays safety. You've got a 3-year starter at receiver who also plays safety, 3-year starter at running back who plays corner, 3-year starter at linebacker and Will Crouch, who's also playing. He started a few games at offensive guard last year. And then you've got J.J. Godet, who it's been well documented how big he is. I mean, 6'8", puts on 35, 40 pounds from March to August. Yeah. So he's up to 280, 285, 290, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. He's going to be a load for even Morris, which traditionally has a pretty big line to deal with. So should be interesting. I'm looking forward to finding out what happens up there.
Yeah. Might have to get the video of that one, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe
somehow, some way.
Yeah. Watch the game on my iPad late at night. Maybe have the coaches send me some film. Yeah. Let's do one more each. How about that?
All right. Go ahead.
Oh. Okay.
Throw you for.
I don't know what game to do. Let's do Pekin and Sterling, because I think this is going to be interesting because Sterling lost a lot, but I think they've had a running clock in like 15 of their last 25 games or something like that, which is really just incredible. They've become a 5A power, even though maybe they haven't broken through the state championship level in the past couple of years. They've ran into some really good teams, but I think Pekin is an interesting team just because of how sizable they are up front on both ends, and they are a 7A school, so they can afford to not play as many players two ways. And that offensive line, they can really move some dudes. I mean, Braden Cruz ran for 125 yards last week. Nathan Riggy had plenty of time to throw. Won't have as much time to throw this week, and it's going to be a little more difficult against Sterling, who I think still probably comes in here and wins. But I think it's going to be closer than the, 49-0 or 49-7 route that it was last year. I think it's going to be, a touchdown or two, a 2-possession, 1 to 2 possession game for the majority of the game.
Mm-hmm. And for me, I'll go with what you. I'll go with what you say. I don't have much more to add.
What he said.
Yeah, ditto.
What about the small schools?
Oh boy, that's how about DMAC at El Paso Gridley? We'll go with that one. Potentially, I mean, that could be another close game. It'll be kind of interesting to see. Again, like I mentioned earlier, the changes that DMAC makes, the improvements that they make from week 1 to week 2. El Paso Gridley, I think I may have to go with the home team there, but I think this one's going to be another tight game for DMAC and a game that could go either way. I mean, it could go down again, just like they had this past weekend. It could go down to a possession there at the end. So I'll go with DMAC on that. I mean, no. What'd I say? Yeah, El Paso. Sorry. I'm good.
I'll go with DMAC then.
There you go.
Because I don't know. I don't really know much about either team. I know DMAC has a new stadium, but that doesn't really help them on the road. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess that does it for the Facebook Live version of the podcast. But tune in later tonight as the podcast hits pjstar.com/podcasts or pjstar.com/preps. And you can listen to the conversation that I had with Pekin quarterback Nathan Riggy and wide receiver Sebastian, not Julian and not Christian, but Sebastian Hill. Which it was really fun. It was really fun to go out there. We sat in the coach's office and talked, and there's no AC. There's like a fan going overhead. And I walked out of there just like drenched in sweat because it was so hot. And but it was a good conversation nonetheless, and you guys should tune in. Special thanks to producer Matt Dayhoff. Yeah. So go download the podcast, subscribe on your favorite podcast listening device and podcast store, and tune into that interview at the tail end of the podcast. Thanks for joining us, guys.